F is for Family by MFK Fisher, from the book The Art of Eating, the collected gastronomical works of Mary Frances Kennedy Fisher. F is for family, and the depths and heights of gastronomical enjoyment to be found at the family board. It is possible, indeed almost too easy, to be eloquently sentimental about large groups of assorted relatives who gather for Christmas or Thanksgiving or some such festival, and eat and drink and gossip and laugh together. They always laugh. In Norman Rockwell magazine covers and in Iowa novels and in any currently popular variation of I Remember Mustache Cups, there is gargantuan laughter. From toothless babe to equally toothless gramp, great quantities of home-cooked goodies are consumed. Great pitchers of Uncle Nub's hard cider are quaffed, and great gusts of earthy merriment sweep like prairie fire around the cluttered table. The menfolk bring out their whittling knives in postprandial digestive calm, and women, sometimes spelled women, to denote an inaudible provincialism, chatter and scrape and swab down in the kitchen, and the bulging children bulge. The cold truth is that family dinners are more often than not an ordeal of nervous indigestion, preceded by hidden resentment and ennui, and accompanied by psychosomatic jitters. The best way to guarantee smooth sailing at one of them is to assemble the relatives only when a will must be read. This, at least, presupposes good manners during the meal, if the lawyer is not scheduled to appear until after it. Funeral baked meats have perhaps been more enjoyed than any christening cake or wedding potages, thanks largely to the spice of wishful thinking that subtly flavors them, as yet untouched by disappointment, dread, or hatred. My own experience with family dinners has fallen somewhere between this facile irony and the bucolic lustiness of popular idealization. I remember that several times at Christmas, there were perhaps 20 of us at the ranch for a lengthy noon dinner, to which none of us was accustomed. I always had fun being young and healthy and amenable, but I do not recall, perhaps to my shame, that I had any special fun. To be truthful, I was conscious by my 11th or 12th year that there was about the whole ceremony a kind of doggedness, a feeling that, in spite of hell and high water, we were duty-bound to go through with it, because my grandfather was very old and might not live another year, or because a cousin had just lost her abominable but very rich husband, or because another cousin was going to Stanford instead of Yale, at Yale's request, and so would be with us, or something like that. It was tacitly understood that the next day would find my sister Anne droopy and bilious, my mother overtired, and the cook crankily polishing glasses and eyeing the piles of the best Irish linen that had to be laundered. My father, on the other hand, would still be glowing. He loved any kind of party in the world, even a family one. I seem, and am thankful for it, to have inherited some of his capacity for enjoying such intramural sport, combined fortunately with my mother's ability to cope with it. In spite of my conviction that a group of deliberately assembled relatives can be one of the dullest, if not most dangerous gatherings in the world, I am smugly foolhardy enough to have invited all my available family, more than once, to dine with me. The last time was perhaps the most daring, and it went off with a dash and smoothness that will always bulwark my self-esteem, for it was the happy result of many days of thought and preparation. Parents, cousins, new generations all came. It meant hotel reservations in the nearby town and great supplies of food and drink for a long holiday, during which the stores were closed. It meant wood stored under cover for the fireplace in case of rain. It poured. And band-aids and liniment. My nephew and my 2-year-old daughter fell off a boulder into the pond. And considerable self-control. My favorite male shot several of my favorite quail. It meant a lot of work. I was cook, and before the festival I had food prepared, or at least in line for an average 12 persons a meal, 3 meals a day, for 3 days. And the right good wines and the other potables, right good and copious. That I say smugly is no mean feat. It was exciting and rewarding and completely deliberate. Nothing to my knowledge at least went wrong. There was an aura of gaiety and affection all about us. And that too with people of different ages and sexes and beliefs, political and religious and social, is also something of a feat to attain and to maintain. The whole thing, for a miracle to bless me, went off well. This is most often the case in planned celebrations, I think. Now and then, there is a happy accident in families, and brothers and cousins and grandparents who may have been cold or even warlike suddenly find themselves in some stuffy booth in a chop house, eating together with forgotten warmth and amity. But it is rare. Most often, it must be pre-arranged with care and caution. It must not be taken for granted that a given set of ill-assorted people, for no other reason than because it is Christmas, will be joyful to be reunited and to break bread together. They must be jolted, even shocked, into excitement and surprise and subsequent delight. All the old routine patterns of food and flowers and cups must be redistributed to break up that mortal ignominy of the family dinner. When what has too often been said and felt and thought is once more said, felt and thought. Slow poison in every mouthful. Old grudges, new hateful boredom, nascent antagonism and resentment. Why in God's name does Mother always put her arm that way on the chair? And why does Helen's girdle always pop up as she lifts the denuded meat platter up and away from Father? And why does Sis always tap her fingers thus, tinnily, against the rim of her wine glass? Poison indeed, and most deeply felt to be shunned. It takes courage to give a family party, and at least once I had enough to do it, being mightier in my youth than I am now. I was almost stony broke, unable to take, no matter how judicious, a collection of relatives to a decent restaurant. So I summoned my father, mother, brother, and sisters to a supper in the ranch dining room. To celebrate nothing at all. I managed to pay for it almost to the least grain of salt. Silly, but a sop to my proud young soul. I set the table with the family's best silver and china and crystal, especially the iridescent and incredibly thin wine goblets we have always had for party. I went to Bernstein's on the Park in Los Angeles and bought beautiful fresh shellfish, tiny bay shrimp in their shells, crab cooked while I waited, and lobster claws too, pink prawns, little mussels in their purple shells. I went down behind the plaza and bought flat, round loaves of sourdough bread and good spaghetti and sweet butter. I bought some real cheese, not the kind that is made of byproducts and melted into tinfoil blocks. I bought Wente Brothers Grey Riesling and Italian Swiss Colony Tipo Red, and some oven-roasted coffee blended on Pioma's drugstore counter for me. There, in short, was the skeleton of the feast. The flesh upon this bony structure was a more artful thing, compounded of my prejudices and my enthusiastic beliefs. It is true that my comparative youngness made me more eager to do battle than I would be now, but I still think I was right to rebel against some of the inevitable boredom of dining en famille. To begin with, I reseated everyone. I was tired of seeing my father looming against the massive ugliness of the sideboard, with that damn square mirror always a little crooked behind his right ear. I assumed somewhat grandly that he was equally tired of looking down the table toward my mother, forever masked behind a collection of cigarette boxes, ashtrays, sugar shakers left there, whether needed or not. A Louis Quinze snuff box full of saccharine, several salt shakers, a battered wooden pepper mill, and an eternal bouquet, fresh but uninspired, of whatever could be gleaned from the garden. With never a yea or nay to guide me, I eliminated this clutter from the center of the table. It had been on my nerves for at least 15 years, and in a low bowl I arranged bought camellias instead of a grown bunch of this or that from the side yard. My parents were rocked on their bases, to put it mildly, and only innate good manners kept them from shying away from my crazy plan like startled and resentful deer whose drinking place has been transferred. Those were my first and most drastic attempts, clumsy enough, I admit, but very successful in the end, to break up what seemed to me a deadly dull pattern. Then I used the sideboard as a buffet, which had never been done before in my memory. I tipped off my siblings beforehand, and we forced my father to get up and get his own first course of shellfish, which he enjoyed enormously after he recovered from the first shock of not having someone wait on him. He poked and sniffed and puttered happily over the beautiful platters of shrimp and such like, and made a fine plate of things for my mother, who sat with an almost shy smile, letting the newness of this flood gently, unforgettably, into her sensitive mind and heart. My brother poured the cold grey Riesling with a flourish, assuming what had always been father's prerogative. Later, I served the casserole of spaghetti with its eternal family accompaniment of rich sauce, and it was doubly delicious for that flouting of tradition. The tipo was good, the tipo flowed, so happy magic did our talk. There we were, solidly for one of those moments at least, leaning our arms easily along the cool wood, reaching without thought for our little cups of hot bitter coffee, or our glasses, not laughing perhaps as the families do in the pictures and the stories, but with our eyes loving and deep, one to another. It was good, worth the planning. It made the other necessary mass meals more endurable, more part of being that undeniable rock, the family. Next is the footnote, as written by MFK Fisher, which includes, I suppose, a recipe for spaghetti. There is an inevitable ritual about serving and eating spaghetti. Sometimes when I have endured the pompous stewings and simmerings and scrapings and tastings of an amateur chef's performance, for it can be called no less, I have felt that nothing at all would be preferable, but fortunately for me, I like good spaghetti too well to forego it. The first time I ever saw it eaten, as it should be, in varying degrees of longness and a fine uniformity of writhing limpness and buttery richness and accompanying noisy sounds, I was fairly young, 14 or so. I was old enough to be conscious of wearing my best manners, for I was upstairs in Los Angeles's one elegant restaurant, and the fact that it was Ignace Paderewski I was watching with such fascination did nothing to alleviate my priggish horror at the spectacle. That he was obviously enjoying himself could not, at my tender age, mean much. I still thought in terms of being sent away from the table for glupping and spilling, both of which he did nonchalantly. For a long time I pondered on the whole strange sight. What undoubtedly made it stranger still to me was the way spaghetti was always served at home. There it was, and still is, the cook's easiest choice for using leftover beef or lamb. In spite of the mediocrity of inspiration, we loved its soft texture and its warmth, the little broken lengths of pasta, the various bits of meat crumbs and tomato and cheese, and the crust that forms on top of it in the baking. We still do, and no matter what life has done to our taste buds, when we are home for a weekend or a week, we hope there will be enough fried chicken or pot roast left for Helen to make spaghetti. My natural revolt against this uninspired, misbegotten pattern filled me when I left the nest with over-enthusiasm for the gymnastics of the amateurs. And I hate now to think of the sticky, lukewarm messes I have happily downed sitting, vie bohème, upon a dirty studio floor, with a glass of red ink beside me. But come to think of it, I do not hate that thought. I look back on it, relieved, both to be able to look back and to have its unthinking, youthful liveliness to look back on. I prefer, I add with no haste, the present. I prefer infinitely my own routine for making and serving spaghetti, for I have come to admit that no matter how simply it is done, it involves enough calculation and timing to qualify as a real performance, like any theatrical routine. There is an apt description of it by James M. Cain in Merle Armitage's Fit for a King. What he says about the quickness and the hotness of everything is what I too would say. He gives typically virile recipes for 2 sauces to be served with the plain cooked spaghetti, according to taste. Then he writes, there is always one peculiar fellow, the same one who always puts salt in his beer, who likes his with butter only, so a little butter on the table won't hurt. Now, I never put salt in my beer, nor do I ever plan to, but I am one of Mr. Cain's peculiar fellows in that I like not only spaghetti, but every other form of pasta sciota without a trace of the popular and indeed socially requisite sauces that always coat them or swim alongside. I go so far as never to serve them at my own table, and I can add smugly that many a confirmed sauceman has left my table converted to my theory that nothing helps fresh hot spaghetti as much as a plenitude of sweet butter, fresh ground pepper, and good grated Parmesan cheese, all added at top speed and tossed and mixed regardless of 14-year-old stares like the one I gave the innocent Paderewski, the whole washed down with a good Chianti or Tipo Red. I must confess that it is in a way harder to achieve my seeming simplicity, due to my chastity of design, than to ask some of my eager Food and Wine Club acquaintances to come in and devastate the kitchen in the creation of one of his famous spaghetti dinners. I can remember all too many weighty pinches of saffron and thunderous hints of sweet marjoram in the name of this gastronomical oddity, and cannot help feeling in all cynicism that a quantity of pre-prandial highballs had more to do with the half-famished guests' acclamations than did any real goodness in the dish itself. I have watched a great many off-the-record culinary shows, non-professional of course, and I think that the production of a large platter of spaghetti and its sauce calls forth more of the prima donna in the average amateur cook than anything except perhaps crepe Suzette. One otherwise sober friend of mine goes so far as to assemble all the guests, let them watch a few simple but dramatic processes such as searing the chopped beef and then dousing the blue-black choking fumes with red wine and immediately afterward makes his invited spectators leave the kitchen at once, peremptorily, and bound to silence, while he bends tensely over a secret packet of spices he has procured at great expense and brought seemingly to the noisy staccato of gunfire from rival chefs who would kill him for his treasure and proportions therein. Here is the way ridiculous climax that I myself serve spaghetti and prefer that it be served to me. I am, to quote Mr. Kane again, peculiar. Have a bowl of grated Parmesan, genuine and sandy, and unadulterated by domestic package stuff. A large pat of sweet butter, a good salt shaker, and a freshly filled peppermill. As many hot plates as there are people, and a big hot casserole with a lump of butter melting in the bottom. Cook good spaghetti rapidly in plenty of boiling water. If the spaghetti is really reputable, I do not salt the pot. When half cooked, add a lump of butter or a tablespoon of olive oil. This keeps the water from boiling over and seems to eliminate the danger of sticking. When a strand of the spaghetti, of course not broken beforehand, can be pinched between my thumb and forefinger, I think it is done. Somewhat more than al dente, but not too soft. Then pour it, throw it almost, into a big colander. Dash very cold water thoroughly through it, and then boiling hot water even more thoroughly. I know this is a heinous procedure to some gastronomical purists. And shake it furiously to dry it off a little. Pour it blazing hot into the almost sizzling casserole and serve it immediately on the equally hot plate of whoever is hungry for it. The next step precludes any so-called table manners. It must be carried out with rapidity, a skill easy to enlarge by pleasurable practice and undaunted enthusiasm. Put a generous lump of sweet butter on top of the pile of spaghetti. First served, first come. Shake and twist on the salt and pepper, also generously. Pile Parmesan on top, and with your fork, mix the whole into an odorous, steamy, rich, Medusa-like tangle. All that is left is to eat it. That, according to the general air of bien-être and relaxation, which should by now have spread through the company, is perhaps best left undescribed. Let us say that Paderewski did it beautifully.